Call of Duty or Halo, and you have your gun that you're building or armor, and you want it to have like scuff marks, you want it to have dirt, grime, and just other like use material, like the fact that it's been used. You're going to need some weathering techniques. Now, there's multiple different techniques to do for weathering. It all depends on what you work. Personally, there's 3 techniques that I know of. You need either a hard bristle brush that you can get from like a paint store. There's toothbrush, or you can just use a basic washcloth. Now, there's 2 basic techniques from that point, and you have your wet brushing and you have dry brushing. I'm going to show you dry brushing up here, just because I like it better and it's a lot easier to, at least for me, it's a lot easier to predict what it's going to do with dry brushing compared to wet brushing. I will show you wet brushing later on after the end of this slide, but I will do wet brushing after I show you the mayo trick. Now, the mayo trick is very interesting. You're probably all like, what the hell is this mayo trick? Why are you putting mayo on your props? If you look at these pictures, this is your pristine Iron Man helmet, which is real nice. But halfway through the Avengers, your helmet looks like this. So how do you go from getting this to this? So basically, this is where that base coat of that metallic color you have. So your first coat is that metallic color, as you can see here in all these. After that dries, you then put dabs, or streaks rather, of mayo on the armor. And now you're probably thinking this is really weird, but it does work. So after you put that mayo on, then you immediately paint over it with your next color. And then you wait for that next color to dry. And then after it's dried, you take a knife, an X-Acto knife, and you scrape off where the mayo was. And that gets you these little paint scrapes and all of this other detailing, so that it shows the gunmetal through, but there's that paint over top of it. And then from there you do your weathering tricks to make it look more natural and actually look like scuff marks. But it's a very interesting trick.
Masking. That's called masking.
Yes. So, on to, I guess, I'm going to throw this up here while I show you the dry brushing. These are all the references that I got for some of the images. That one's where I got most of the images, but you can also, if you need more interesting looks on how to do weathering, how other people finish their props, just use Google. Use other prop makers because they're all over the place. The Prop Replica Forum.
Is it the RPF?
Facebook.
RPF, not PRF.
The Prop Replica Forum.
I've always seen it as RPF, the replica.
Replica platform?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've seen it as PRF. Okay. Either way, it's the Prop Replica Forum. I don't know the actual. I think it's.
They had to change their site because
Either
someone
way,
hacked into it or something a while
if you
back.
search the Prop Replica Forum on Google, you'll find it, and then you can look on there. You can do searches on the forums. So, here's what you do: is first mix your paint because you don't want unmixed paint because then you're just gonna get really weird enamel, half enamel, half paint, and it just won't look good. So now that your paint is mixed, also I'm going to be showing you this on Edward Elric's watch. So this is a very basic watch. This is the one that they sell you at cons and stuff. It looks just metallic. It has the little words written here, but they're very raised edge, and you can't really see them from a distance. So I'm gonna bring those out, and I'm just gonna make it look like this has been around the world, like Edward Elric does in the show. So basically, you start with you have your paint. Now this is where the whole point of dry brushing comes in. Is you take a nice little bit of, it can either be a rag, it can be pretty much anything that you don't mind getting paint on. I just use paper towels. And you just wipe the paint off, and a good majority of the paint off, until you are getting to the point where you don't really see it anymore on the sheet. So once you're getting to this point, so this is probably good enough for our purposes. You then take the watch, and dry brushing isn't really meant to be on the flat surfaces. They're just flat. So like this, you wouldn't see very many scuff marks or like dirt and grime in it because it's totally flat. So you would see it on the corners or the recessed edges on things because that's where dirt and grime is gonna like accumulate. So you would go along here and you would just kind of go in all of the cracks and just, put your paint in it, basically. And then once you do that, now this is also going to take multiple coats. If you're not getting the effect that you need with your dry brushing, then you dip your paint in and you leave a little bit more on. So like for instance right now, I'm not getting a whole lot of black on it, so I'm going to have to re-add paint on here and just leave a little bit more on there to then put into the holes. And then once you do that, kind of rub it around a little bit, kind of, dirty it up however you see fit. This is where the artistic, value comes in because, it's all personal in this case. Like, you do it how you see fit. There is no right way to do it. I mean, there are wrong ways to do it though. You don't want to just, dip this in paint and say it's done, obviously. So, right now, it just looks like there's a ton of black all over it. So then you wipe off a little bit of the excess paint that you have. And kind of get it out of like wherever like the flat edges were. So like wherever this is like flat on whatever prop you're dealing with, you kind of want to wipe that off a little bit just because there wouldn't be grime there, or at least less grime there. And then once you do that, it went to something like this, where you can tell it just looks a little bit more dirty, a little bit more used. And it doesn't just look like your flat metal.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm gonna go around the camera. So.
Not shiny.
Not shiny anymore. So at this point, this is just with black. You're gonna want to, if you want to do like, so say for instance you have like a copper prop. Copper is gonna rust, but it's gonna rust to be that weird like blue, green, weirdy color. Like, if you take a penny and bury it in the ground for like a year, you pull it back out, it's gonna have a shape. Either way, it's got that blue-green.
Yeah.
So you're gonna take your enamel paint or whatever paint you're working with, and you're gonna mix it to get whatever desired color you want, and then you apply it in the same way, same cracks, and then you're gonna do it however. So a lot of this just is based on how you want to paint it. So if you want dirt, you'd mix some like greens and browns and blacks in together until you get the desired color. Throw it in the cracks. So that is dry brushing. Now I'm going to show you what the wet brushing is. Although I really
Professor Farnsworth.
What knows everyone?
I don't really know how to change a lot of this because this is really. Let me see if I can. Bring it back in. All right. So
Kevin.
this is Volpin. Volpin is kind of like my prop senpai kind of person. He made the Halo Needler from scratch. So this is his needler. And this is his basically run through on how he weathered his needler. Because right now it looks rather, normal. It doesn't have a whole lot of dirt on it. It just looks like it's pristine. And he was like, you know what, this is probably used by like a foot soldier. So, they're not going to be cleaning their rifle as well as they should be. So he's going to put some dirt and grime on it. So this is like how it looks without his grime. So at the first time, you mix your colors. This is the whole like blue-green color mixing, you get. So this is his dirt color. And And then he applies it using a brush, wet brushing all over his prop. So once you do this, and this is all over the cracks too. You don't want to put it all over your prop because then that's just a waste of paint. Two, you don't want all that dirt all over your prop. Otherwise, it's not going to be looking good, and it would be such a waste of good paint job on the rest of his prop. So once you have this, you continue painting the rest of his cracks. So you can see where he has these little indents on all of his prop. So after you apply it, then you're gonna basically take your rag or your paper towel and just wipe it all off. Now, a paper towel, when you're wiping over those edges, as you can see, over the flat ones, it's gonna wipe off all the paint. But in the recessed edges, you're still gonna get that brown paint because the paper towel doesn't entirely reach in there. And that's the effect that you want. So that pretty much is how wet application goes. And this is his comparison. This is an unweathered piece, and then this is his weathered piece. So you can see the difference on his angles and how this looks really clean and these look really dirty with like dirt inside of it. And then this is a video that he posted. This was his like 6th prop that he made. He made the M8 Avenger from Mass Effect, and this is his video of his speed run through weathering the entire prop and just adding all of the details on it. So this is him. Now he has an airbrush, so this is where he adds stencils and then just slowly adds all of his details using the stencils. So he laser cut his stencils, so sadly we don't have all of that at our disposal. But he then has his stencils cut out of blue paint, or blue painter's tape. And he applies his details using his enamel paint. And then afterwards, he then will wait for it to dry and then peel all of that tape up with his X-Acto knife, because you want to be really careful that the tape doesn't pull up the paint that you painted, otherwise it's going to not look good. And then after he has all of that, he then, I believe, begins on his paint mixing to start weathering everything. As you can see, his annotations kind of tell you what he's doing. So he takes his brown paint, mixes it all together, and then just adds it in all of the recesses all over the place. Over the entire thing, wherever you want dirt to be and grime to gather, or all of the places that you would imagine it would all be gathering. And then, so, continues painting. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. And then he takes his wet rag and he just wipes it all off, all of the flat edges, but it leaves all of that dirt and grime still in those holes. And as you can see, it's starting to look more like, not just a fresh off the assembly line gun. It looks like it's actually been used. And you also have to take into account that more recessed areas should have more grime in them. So, when you have these lines are probably going to have more recesses than these lines. So take that into account and be okay with leaving paint. If you see paint left over, don't think, oh, this isn't where I want it, and try and wipe it off, because that's the whole idea. It's supposed to be imperfect. And you're going to have to let your mind go on that fact. I still haven't really figured that out yet, because I like pristine props more than weathered props. But after you see a truly weathered prop, it does look a whole lot better from what the original is. I believe at the end here, he shows you what it fully looks like. So this is what the full finished prop looks like after he's painted everything.
It's so pretty.
The other thing you could do is, if you didn't want to use the mayonnaise trick, or you just wanted to put scuff marks on the edges and not do a full bullet shot through the helmet kind of thing, you could take an X-Acto knife and just scrape off that top layer of paint on the edges to reveal the underside for if you bang the rifle on the wall or something. I don't know. So you can do that. That pretty much covers it, I think. yeah, so guess doesn't want to do the rest of the presentation. So I guess that's it. Okay. If you have any questions, I wish I could show you more, but the reason why I can't really is that entire like 5-minute video took him 2 days to make. So, you know, it's a laborious process because paint can't just sit here watching paint dry. So I can only do so much for you, and that's why I like dry brushing. Is right now, with wet brushing, you have to wait for the paint to dry. Right now, that paint is entirely dry, and I'm good because it's put on so thinly and in such like small places that you don't have to worry about it, and you can automatically start using it, and it's not going to get anywhere. So that's why I like dry brushing, because it's quicker. So yeah. What?
Oh, right, questions. I'm making my own guns as blades. So far, all I have for base are foam core, and I'm not quite sure if that will that actually be strong enough once I apply a filler that's not Bondo, or
As long as they're stacked together and it's small, it should be good. But you might want to add some reinforcement. If you can, try fiberglass resin on something small like that, because otherwise it's just going to flake off. Things I've noticed, especially if you're using foam core, points of things. So if you have a prop that has like a sword and it has a point to it, after like, 3 hits into the wall, it's going to be coming off, and you recognize, oh, that's foam core underneath all of that. Use fiberglass resin on the end. Just make a little bit, and just take a paintbrush that you don't want anymore, and just apply your fiberglass resin to the points of everything that you don't want to pop off. And after it dries, it should dry, and the points will be good.
Could you do that with epoxy sculpt too?
You could do it with epoxy sculpt. If you have it on hand, by all means. If you don't, the only thing with epoxy sculpt is it is only accessible online. You can only buy it online, so you have to worry about getting it shipped in. Whereas if you have fiberglass resin, you can just go to a hardware store and buy it. But I do recommend epoxy sculpt, but it is a little expensive. I have, I believe it's 2-pound containers of each, and that was $40. Now, mind you, that also has lasted me an entire year thus far. So, and I actually have been making a lot of props lately. So that tells you a lot on how long it will last you, but it's up to you if you want to spend it. They make little smaller sizes, but you also want to make sure that you have enough. So if you're doing a large-scale prop with a lot of details, just buy more. If you have more extra, whoop-de-doo, you now have more for later projects. Any other questions?
does the filler actually go into all the individual cells of foam core, or is it just kind of more or less an outer
Well,
coating?
foam core, at least on the flat sides, is a paper coating. So there are no cells for it to fill, so it'll apply just normally. Now on the edges, this is where the whole apply, sand, reapply, sand comes in. You're probably going to have to apply it once, sand it down, see where the holes are, reapply it, sand it down, see if there's any more holes, reapply. Now if you cut it foam core, at least, correctly, with an X-Acto knife and using good technique with your X-Acto knife, your foam core should be rather smooth to touch. There shouldn't be any pieces missing from the edge. If it's smooth to the touch, the Bondo, you only need a few layers on it because it won't have any pores to fill because they're already filled by foam. Anything else? Okay, y'all can go home now.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to go home, but you can't stay.
Yeah, you don't have to go home. We can't say